Good morning, everyone. I'll call this council meeting to order. It's February 14th council meeting agenda. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with Municipal Government Actions Act, Section 199. Council chamber is open for public attendance in person. However, councilors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our teleconference process. If you have submitted a comment request to the administration prior to the meeting, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time the phone lines will be unmuted. If you'd like to speak, please state your name. Individuals will be allotted 5 minutes to speak or 10 minutes for a group as per our procedural bylaw. If the meeting is recessed, callers will be put on hold until the meeting reconvenes, with the exception at noon where callers will be asked to call back in. This helps with the quality of the call. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. We ask that all attendees mute their devices to reduce disruptions to this meeting. Everyone has the right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. If any attendings that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting will be removed at the discretion of the chair, as per MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Being that we have a remote caller, I will call a roll call. Councillor Priest.
I'm here.
Councillor Bigger.
Here.
Councillor Reichert.
Present.
Reeve Link.
Good morning.
Deputy Reeve Clausen's here. Councillor Kester.
Present.
Councillor Lawerson.
Here.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes? Go ahead.
I'd like to pull out 5.7 in the consent agenda.
Okay, there's still, I'll mark that for here. But at the start of the consent agenda there, you can go through that again in case anybody else does.
Okay.
With the process, the consent agenda, right as we go into it, there's a process to pull stuff out, but I will flag that for now.
Yes, the chair, that's correct. So that motion just needs to be made at the start of the consent agenda. So
I have a question for staff then. You sent a letter out to CAO on Friday on collaboration grant from Rockyford. Will you be bringing that to council on the next council meeting? I realized it didn't make the package. Or
yes, that's correct. So the ICF there was a grant approval from the Minister of Municipal Affairs for $200,000 with the Village of Rockyford. Just missed the cutoff time. It wasn't nothing pressing on the timeline of that. It was just for information. So council did get that. We'll publish that in our package at the next council meeting.
okay, thank you. I'll move acceptance as the agenda is presented then.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion? We'll be using eScribe to vote. Hopefully everybody's logged in. Does that work for you, Reeve Link?
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. And that's carried. So we have 2 public hearings. I will recess from the regular council meeting. Do I need a motion for that? Okay. I'll call the public hearing to order. And I have another speech to do. Good morning, everyone. As per Section 192 of Procedure Bylaw 2024-24, the public hearing will be conducted in the following order. Staff report by administration, presentation by the applicant, presentations by the public in support of the proposal, presentations by the public in opposition of the proposal, rebuttal presentation by the applicant limited only to the comments read or heard in opposition to the proposal, final questions of administration, council motion to close the public hearing. The applicant will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Any individuals supporting or opposing the proposal will have up to 5 minutes to speak. Any groups of individuals will have up to 10 minutes. The applicant will then have a maximum of 10 minutes for the rebuttal. If there are any questions relating to this process, please refer to our procedural bylaw. Did I miss any motions after we started?
Just a motion to open the public hearing.
I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I will make that motion.
Motion's on the floor. Any questions? I will call the question. And that's carried. Does that motion stand for both public hearings or just the first one? Okay, it's for just the first one. So this is for clarification, 2024-30, land redesignation. Can administration please verify that the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Good morning. Yes. Notice was circulated of the public hearing in advance of today's public hearing. The county received one letter of opposition found on page 19, and there were no late submissions after the agenda was published.
Thank you very much. Anyone that presents, we request that you speak your name and address for the record. Go ahead with your presentation. We are going on to bylaw 2024-30 land redesignation.
Good morning, Council. Taylor Felt with the county's Planning and Development Services team here to present bylaw 2024-30 for Council's consideration. Referring to page 10 of the agenda package here, the subject lands are located 1 kilometer northeast of the hamlet of Ardenode, immediately southeast of the intersection of Highway 1 and Range Road 253. The application proposes to redesignate Lot 1, Block 2, Plan 1412199 within Northwest 22, 2525 west of the 4th, from the Commercial Highway District to the Industrial General District in order to facilitate the development of a water treatment, chemical, and equipment storage and supply business. Clearwater Equipment and Technologies intends to repackage bulk products that are used by municipalities in the treatment of raw water and wastewater, serving more than 400 customers across Western Canada, including communities in Wheatland County and our neighbors in Standard. The manufacturing of products does not take place on site. Rather, products such as bulk liquids and powders will be purchased in larger quantities and repackaged into smaller containers for distribution and use by their municipal clients. The applicant indicated that the products are non-toxic, non-flammable, non-odorous, and non-fuming. Therefore, off-site impacts that could compromise the use and enjoyment of adjacent properties or the surrounding environment will be negligible. The site is about 18.5 acres in size and is developed with an existing 20,000 square foot single-story building with road access available via an existing approach to Range Road 253 to the west. The applicant has stated that there's no immediate plans for the increase to the building footprint of the existing structure, and no additional structures are needed on site to support the business at this time, meaning that the site will remain as is in the near future. Portable water will be provided by an existing private well on site. The applicants would require a commercial water license from Alberta Environment and Protected Areas to use water resources in any of their intended operations. And wastewater will be managed via the existing holding tank and hauled off site for further treatment. The applicant provided a business operations outline with their application, which can be found starting on page 19 of the agenda package. I have it up on the screen here. The outline provides more information on the nature and scope of the business, including hours of operations, number of employees, servicing details, and anticipated traffic trips, which I'll summarize here briefly. The business intends to operate Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. The applicant anticipates about 2 to 3 truck trips to and from the site per day, with an average of 10 to 15 truck trips on average per week. And this is for their scheduled deliveries and pickups. Given the nature of the business, their customers do not visit the site, so there will be no storefront component. Beyond the 5 to 6 employees that will be visiting the site daily, there's not any anticipated extra traffic. And staff has shared the projected truck trips with the county's transportation engineer, who determined that it was unlikely that there would be any significant impact on the county's transportation network, and therefore no improvements are needed at this stage of development. The proposal generally aligns with the relevant statutory and non-statutory policies and was evaluated in accordance with the guiding principles, goals, and objectives outlined in the municipal development plan. The proposal aligns with the MDP's guiding principles for economic growth and preservation of agricultural lands, which aim to encourage job creation and embrace economic opportunities presented by the regional transportation network, while limiting the further conversion of agricultural land in the process. The proposal also aligns with the MDP's commercial and industrial development policies and criteria for single lot light industrial development identified in section 3.7.2.4, which considers the proposal's proximity to regional transportation corridors, proximity to hamlets and other residential areas, traffic generation, stormwater management, servicing, the mitigation of land use conflicts, and then off-site nuisance factors such as dust, odor, noise, lighting, and visual impacts, which can be reevaluated at the development permit stage. Landowners and interested parties within 1 mile of the site were notified when the application was received by Wheatland County, and again in advance of today's public hearing. One letter of concern was received by the county, which can be found on page 18 of the agenda package. And with that, administration is making the recommendation that council grant all 3 readings of bylaw 2024-30 today. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Not seeing any. Process, is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes, the applicant is here today.
You want to present?
Sure.
Please come forward, state your name and the address of the site, please.
Yeah, so my name is Doug Riddell. I'm the president of Clearwater. So it's located at 253073 Range Road 253, as we suggested, just north of Ardenode there. I don't really know what else to cover. All the details were put forth in the application. I think maybe some history on the company. So we've been around for 25 years, always operated out of Calgary. We've had some rapid growth over the last couple of years, which has led us to finding a new building. We always operated in a third-party warehouse in the city, looking for a new building in about 20,000 square feet. We looked in the city to build or acquire a building, and it's quite expensive in the city, as you know. So we found this building out here, which is perfect for us. It has underground drains. It's located remotely. We service mostly remote customers. We service the Wheatland County Plant and Standard. We do the plant that the county runs in Muirfield Village, Plant North in Balzac. We work in Strathmore. So it's a good location for us. We have branches across Western Canada, so Edmonton, Saskatoon, and Winnipeg. With our growth plans, this is a good landing spot for us. I live just in the tip of Southeast Calgary there. We like the county. It's nicer than the city. It was nice to get out there. So really, it's just a new home for us. Part of the chemicals that we talk about might be fearful for some people, and I think we saw that with one comeback. I'm a chemist myself. We have a lot of chemists on site and on staff. The products that we do sell are like we said, non-toxic, non-environmental hazards. Everything that we sell is used for water treatment chemicals. So there's no risk to environment. A lot of them are used in the environment for remediation purposes and for drinking water. We are certified by drinking water standards, so everything that's on site is used in drinking water production. So there's no toxicities, there's no environmental hazards, there's no explosives, no flammables, nothing like that. The chemicals are dangerous, which is why we're here today, to get over to that IG classification for the dangerous goods. But that's really for touch and for transport. Because they can be corrosive, but they're not environmental hazards by any means. So everything that we do is kind of on the good side of the chemistry world, I guess, and trying to make the water better. So I don't really have a ton to add because it was all discussed in there, but I'm happy to take questions on what we do or what the plans are for the site.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Thanks.
Move on to the next part of this, presentations of public in support of the proposal. And bear in mind, I have to ask this question 3 times. Anybody online? I'll ask again, any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? Third and final, any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the next. Presentations by the public in opposition of the proposal. Second time, same question. Presentations by the public in opposition of the proposal. Third and final time, presentations by the public in opposition to this proposal. Hearing it. Go ahead.
I'll move the council moves to close the public hearing for bylaw 2024-30.
I still got a couple steps before that. Just park that for now, please. I got 3 more things to do.
It's on the floors.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll leave it on the floor till then. I'll come back to that. Any rebuttal presentations? Don't see any need for that. Final questions of administration from council.
I have one question, actually. I just wanted to clarify. So the letter in opposition stated something about concern that if this company was to leave and a new industrial company, they would require a development permit, would they not? And we would evaluate a different industrial company and the hazards that might exist for that at that time?
Through the chair to Councillor Laprise, can you just repeat the beginning of your question there?
Sorry, so in the letter of opposition, the person had stated a concern that if we change the land redesignation, that then it opens it up to a different company coming in the future. So I just wanted to clarify that if that were to happen, there would be a development permit application and it would come before us to evaluate new concerns or risks.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So by changing the land use district, we do have a new list of permitted and discretionary uses that may put forward a development permit in the future, but we would look at all of the offsite impacts again at the development permit stage for any business coming to that site in the future, evaluating the noise. Maybe it requires a TIA, environmental assessment. That's another touch point for that evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. There's a motion on the floor to close the public hearing. Any discussion? I'll call the question. And that's carried. We resume. So we're back to council now, and we are on, bear with me for a second. Page 3 of the agenda, we have several resolutions in front of us for bylaw redesignation. Go ahead.
I'll move the council approves first reading of bylaw 2024-30, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate Lot 1, Block 2, Plan 1412199 within Northwest 222525 west of the 4th Meridian from Highway Commercial District to Industrial General District as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor. Any questions? Discussion? I'll call the question. That's carried. Go ahead.
I'll move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2024-30.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. That's carried. Go ahead, Councillor Larson.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2024-30.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? I will call the question. That is carried unanimously. Councilor Priest?
I'll move that council moves third reading of bylaw 2024-30.
Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Now we go back into public hearing. Do I need another motion or the first one?
Yeah, you'll need a motion to open the public hearing for just
will-
page 22. They're all kind of outlined there.
Yeah.
Just give me, I will make a motion to
Counselor.
open the public hearing for the borrowing bylaw.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's what I was going to move, but I thought we were supposed to put our hand up first.
No, my apologies. If your hand was up, go ahead.
The council moves to open the public hearing for bylaw 2024-07.
Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. And that's carried. My apologies on the procedure, but lots going on trying to make sure I see everybody. Do I have to read through this again?
Through the chair, no, the process has already been outlined for the public hearing.
Okay, so
It would just mirror what had occurred earlier.
yeah, so anybody that's online or watching, we are going to follow the same process before. So we are looking at bylaw 2024-07, the Goldfinch Waterline Borrowing Bylaw, public hearing. Staff report, please go ahead.
Morning, Council. Joel here from Financial Services. So just to speak briefly to borrowing bylaw 2024-07 for the purposes of creating a borrowing bylaw for the Goldfinch Raw Waterline project. I'll just kind of summarize some of the details here. The capital project and the budget for the supply line in terms of the infrastructure has already been approved, and the procurement and construction activities are currently underway. The budgeted costs at this point are approximately $10 million. This is new infrastructure with a high cost, yet facilitates regional economic growth and additional tax revenue, and this makes it an ideal project for debt financing. Projected property tax revenue from the developed Goldfinch area is expected to start at between $700,000 and $1 million. The annual loan payments, inclusive of principal and interest, are anticipated to be around $600,000. And as was noted in the report, but I'll just speak to it briefly here, there is substantial capacity in the debt servicing for the county. The 2023 audited financial reports, we calculate the debt servicing report based on the audited numbers. The total cumulative debt capacity is around $51 million, and the annual debt servicing or payment capacity is just over $8 million. So there's capacity in the debt financing from that regard. That concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Kester.
Yeah, could you indicate what you're expecting the interest rate to be and where we're borrowing the money from?
Yeah, so in terms of the interest rate, the economic environment right now is a little bit tentative, but what we did the report and our estimates right now are from the provincial authority and the most current rate at that level. But I believe we're also available to go out to market for the most competitive rate. So this was, at the time, it was just over 5% for a 20-year loan. I think it was 5.04%. That's what we based it on.
Opportunity, or is there opportunity to renegotiate the loan? Like, is there like a 10-year term, 5-year term, or is it the same interest rate for the whole term is what I'm...
My understanding from the provincial authority is that they're fixed rates for the term, but I believe in the, and CAO Henderson could clarify this, but I think if we go to market, there is opportunity for having flexible terms around that.
Yes, so through the chair, we've been working with our current investment provider, CIBC, on rates as well. I think they're a little bit more competitive than the AFCA, but we'll have to get just kind of both rates just to make sure we're getting the best one. Administration did undertake just a preliminary process to see what the rates would be like if there was repayment clauses, say we got a lump sum to start utilizing that system. And ultimately, when we kind of looked at it, the rates were a little bit higher, but what we could do is just take that money and just put it aside for future payments if we did get a contribution for that water line. So ultimately, our thought was that put it into the fixed rate, which could be, interest rates have dropped again since we last talked, just like last week or whatever. So we could just put that money aside into a reserve, just match it when the repayments come forward, and just earn investment income on the contribution to the line. That's correct. So a restricted reserve that would require the approval of council.
Any other questions of administration? Not seeing anything. Thank you very much. So being this is a public hearing, we are the applicant. That was the presentation. Any people in public support of the proposal? Second question, any public here or online in support of the proposal? Third and final time, same question. Anybody here in support of the proposal? Move on to the next one. Anybody in opposition of the proposal? Second time, anybody, including online, in opposition of the proposal? Third and final time, same question. Any presentations by the public in opposition of this proposal? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on. There's no need for a rebuttal. Any final questions from administration to council? Seeing and hearing none, looking for a motion to close this public hearing. Go ahead, Councillor Custer.
I move that council moves to close public hearing for bylaw 2024-07.
Thank you. Any discussion? I will call the question. That's carried. Councillor Eichert.
I'll move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2024-07.
Pardon me, sorry, I just was reminded. I had made a suggestion on the actual wording of the bylaw. Throughout it, it talks about diverging water from the Bow River, and I had suggested that perhaps diverting might be better. So just looking for agreement if people agree that.
Great point. I think it makes better sense to divert instead of diverge, but what does council think? Just a wordsmith? Seeing no disagreement? Thanks for that catch. Councillor Eichert.
I will move second reading of bylaw 2024-07 as amended, being a bylaw for the purpose of authorizing a debenture in the amount of $7,750,000 for the construction of a raw water line from wells diverting water from the Bow River to the Goldfinch Area Structure Plan.
Thank you. Motion is on the floor. Any discussions on the motion? I'll call the question. That is carried. Councillor Bigger.
I'll move that council moves third reading of bylaw 2024-07.
Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. That is carried. I realize I missed any, back to the agenda, any council notices of motion? I don't see any. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We already have one motion coming forward. Go ahead, Councillor. Yes, please.
Bring it out.
A motion to remove the item for discussion.
Okay. I move that we remove 5.7, the Town of Strathmore invitation.
I'd also like to move that we remove the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society correspondence, 5.4.
And I'd like to move that we remove 5.5, the sidewalk correspondence.
So we have three items removed, consent agenda 5.4, 5.5, 5.7. Do I require a motion for that? Sorry. I have three requests to remove 5.4, 5.5, and 5.7. Can I get a motion to have that pulled out of the for discussion from the consent agenda?
Also move.
Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. And that is carried. So we're going to bring up item number 5.4 in our council.
And just to the chair, just another motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items.
My apologies.
I will make the motion to approve the remaining consent agenda, the consent agenda as amended.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. That is carried. So in our package under page 44, we have the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society correspondence. Probably the councillor that requested this would speak to it.
So I was just wondering if there's anything that we can do to facilitate so that at least a couple of councillors could attend. I don't know if administration has any idea how big of an agenda we'll have that day, if we'd be able to, I don't know, if we could have our council meeting start after, or if, like if we just attended for an hour at the AGM or something like that. I don't know.
So there's a discussion about Wheatland and Area, and it's a conflict with an existing council meeting that's been scheduled for quite a long time. We don't know how heavy the agenda is going to be. We could also have we can't really change the day, it's too late, isn't it?
Through the chair, council can definitely change the date of the council meeting or amend the time. I think it would just be require motion of council to do so. I think there's a timeline beforehand. You can also recess the public or the council meeting, say do your bylaw readings, and then recess the council meeting, attend the meeting, then come back and finish the rest of the meeting. That's an option as well. I believe it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. Sorry, time's just kind of flying by in my head, but I know there was quite a few ministers, and I think the premier came to the Wheatland Surface Rights. So I think what had happened is that council might have to remind me what happened actually. I think we moved the council meeting, did we not? We moved it to the Wednesday perhaps?
I think you're right.
Yeah, we do have one public hearing that we know of at least scheduled for the 4th. So I'm not sure if it's a contentious public hearing, how long it would take, if it would take. It shouldn't be long, but
We could also appoint someone to go too,
yeah,
just one person.
as a
so we can
representative
still
of
keep
council.
quorum. Just some different thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I was intending, just to get a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the idea. I don't know, like, I don't think they're going to have ministers and the premier there this year. But so maybe it makes sense to have just a couple of representatives, and we could just keep our council meeting, and whoever wanted to attend it could just excuse ourselves for a couple of hours, I guess. And then you're right, then we could come for the public hearings that are scheduled, and then that's a possibility.
So my question would be to council, is there anybody here that wants to attend?
I would like to.
Okay. Okay. So we have
3 of
two,
us would be
3.
interested.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We need quorum, we need 4, right?
That's correct. You just have to make sure that no one's sick. And if someone is sick, then maybe have a plan for one of the councillors to stay.
Or we could just put it down to 2 councillors going,
Yeah.
or a Reeve or whatever. It's up to council.
So do they have the possibility that they could set up a Zoom thing so they don't have, because this is pretty close to not being in our jurisdiction. This is between the province and the individual landowners. This is not actual Wheatland County, and I'm not sure we should be sticking our nose in it to try to get involved in it, which has always been the discussion. So if there was a Zoom possibility, then that's fine. The last time we went is because the opportunity to talk to ministers and to the premier doesn't come very often, so.
Good discussion. Go
And I
ahead.
guess the reason I think would be worthwhile to go is that we do have a ASB resolution on this topic that we have put forward and are sort of helping to advocate for them. So that's why I thought it was important that at least some of us go, but we could find out about Zoom. It's not quite the same
Still,
as being there,
with
though.
Zoom, you'd still be pulling out of the council meeting to go to that. You can't.
Yes, we'd have to excuse ourselves to another
Yeah,
room. I mean,
yeah.
we still would be absent, but
And I wouldn't hold another meeting, like a whole council sitting into another room. That just wouldn't work.
no.
I think we should at least have our ag chair go and another councillor possibly, and try to keep the council going as well. And bring back the information for sure. I attended the last one they had. It was a lot of information that is can be relevant to what we do, and try to steer, I guess, the questions in the right area. So, you know, their efforts aren't wasted, which I don't think they are. They are a very organized group. So I'd like to hear of the feedback where they're at anyways.
So given the conversation, I'll make a motion that council approve the ASB chair and one other councillor to attend the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society's AGM on Tuesday, March 4th from 10 till noon, in the interest of keeping our council meeting whole as well, so that we have quorum, and even if, with a little buffer.
I think that sounds like a fair compromise. Any other discussion? There's a motion on the floor. Do we have to fill? Anyone? Go ahead. Please turn on your mic.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't name the other counselor, because all of a sudden, 3 counselors. I know I really want to go. You're absolutely right. This affects agriculture in the county. Ag Service Board has supported it in the past, and it is important. I'm also a farmer. It affects me dearly. It always has. And I'm sure Council Larson is the same, and it is our area. That's where we're from. And that's where the heaviest, most intense natural resource extraction is in the counties, the east side of the county. Yeah, I'd even be tempted to say 2 counts, 3 altogether. And it's, like, councilors could be back at 1 o'clock for the council meeting too. It's not like it's an all-day thing.
The reason my motion was said that way is just to protect our council meeting as well.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of buffer in the time when people are sick, but we can also participate remotely into council as well. We've done that at the same time. So if someone is under the weather, they can participate. Yeah.
I will support the ASB chair going and one council member, because if we can't get the information back to council with 2 people there, I'm not sure we're going to get it there with 3. I will support 2 people going, but I will not support 3.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motions on the floor? Call the question. And that is carried. Do we have to name the person or just let it?
It's already a passed motion, so I think council would just need to figure it out on the 4th.
Okay. All right, the second correspondence item, consent agenda item, is item 5.5, SEWA correspondence dated January 22nd, 2025. Councilor Reichert.
So I brought forward, I'm glad that we've submitted our resignation from SEWA, but then it came to my attention that we have paid this year's dues, the 2025 dues, and I'm just wondering if we can direct administration to see if they can get that money back, because it's a substantial amount, is, I believe, I'm not sure what it is, but I believe it is in the $20,000 range. So
I think it's 5, somewhere in
only
there.
5?
5,000, yeah, something like that. I'd have to find the exact amount, but
well, I'm just, if we, beginning of the year, I don't think they've worked on anything that, I don't know, that's just what I'm thinking, that we're not going to be there. If we're not going to be there and we're not supporting it, I don't think we should be supporting it financially either.
Okay, good discussion. I think I had 1 meeting in 2025, just for council's information, that it was at, or 2. 2, yeah. Sorry, 2. Would you like some action taken from that?
Well, I can make a motion to direct administration to see if we can get our funds, whatever, from, that we've submitted for 2025 back from SEWA.
So a motion to review the funds sent and possible actions taken. We'll see how the wordsmithing comes up here. Move that council direct administration to see if we can get our funds submitted for 2025 refunded from SEWA. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. Does that have to be a notice of motion with that kind of thing? Because it was basically related to correspondence, so.
technically not, because it's kind of dealing with that issue at hand in the correspondence. It's just the membership. But
Okay. Again, notice on, motions on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. That's carried. We'll move on to item number 5.7, Town of Strathmore Invitation Regional Collaboration Meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that council attend. This is a collaboration meeting, and especially with all the development coming into the county, annexations, and it is collaboration. I know there was a response put out to the emails that we don't attend partnership meetings, but this is named differently. It's a regional collaboration meeting, and there's no telling who else could be there. And I think it's vital that the county is part of this planning initiative because it is, we just passed the $10 million pipeline to take water to the area. We're still looking for water for another development in the area. And I believe Strathmore was one of the asks to get the water from. So I think it's crucial. So I'll make that motion that we, council attend this and support it wholeheartedly.
Motion's on the floor, discussion. Go ahead.
I would like to, before we, or I would like to see an agenda before we actually vote on where to go or to go to it or not. And I feel like we just finished an IDP and an ICF. I think our communication with Strathmore is in collaborating plans has already been gone through for the last few months. But I think an agenda would be crucial in our decision.
Anyone else?
I would agree with that. I did respond to that to say that we weren't able to come at this point, but and I agree with Councillor Bigger that we have gone through a whole IDP, ICF process with Strathmore, and so yeah, and we're open to meet with Strathmore at any time. It's just we have issues outstanding. So if the agenda came out that it was something that is relevant and current and needed attention now, then I might be swayed.
Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I know we just finished an IDP with the town of Strathmore, but it also says in the letter the invitees are the villages of Rockford Standard and Azar. We did not just finish an IDP from them. We have other requests in this agenda for those villages, some of those villages, maybe all of them. And we also have a letter in our possession from Friday that's going to be in the next council meeting. These are all collaborative measures. There's grants from the province coming down helping us to collaborate and get along with our neighbors. I think in good faith, we just say we're coming and we'll be there as a neighbor in the region.
So there's a motion on the floor. I'll provide some discussion. The IDP and ICF process is exactly where this thing is supposed to go. We have individual agreements with each member municipality. And it's in the process. It's a documented thing. When we were talking to Rocky View, I can just the latest recollection that I have, there was a specific issue about water servicing. We triggered that process, and it has a formality to it. It has everything that is needed. Agendas are set. There's a specific goal, and that's what these processes are for. The province gave us these tools to work with intermunicipally, and that's what it's there for. Because it's a larger region, and Councillor Laprise mentioned not having an agenda, we don't have one at this time, and I don't see it happening within the time that we have to make this decision. So that's kind of a moot point. It'd be nice, yes, but that's not what we're presented with now. If we make a decision today, this will not be dealt with again by the time the meeting comes up. Myself, I already have a previous commitment that day. I'm at an Alberta Care Conference in Canrose. I've been registered for that for 2 weeks already, so I will not be in attendance. I'm away starting that day, and I'm a director for that, so I really cannot avoid going there. Go ahead, Councillor Laursen.
I support Councillor Kester's motion, and I would be willing to attend if we pass this. Not holding my breath.
Councillor Laprise.
Yeah, I think, we can work individually with each of the villages and with Strathmore with, very easily. We've got requests from different villages for different things that we can address one-on-one. Honestly, given the reasoning for not attending, I think we still have collaborative relationships with all of them, just separately.
Go ahead, Councillor Kester.
I realize we have a motion not to attend partnership meetings. This is a one-off collaboration meeting. I know it's a name change. If we don't attend, what kind of message are we sending to probably the biggest development maybe in Alberta in a long time? We got a request for annexation. Council decided to split it up, whatever happened. Next meeting, we decided to agree with the whole thing. There are major players in the province. The province has supported development here for us, and the least we can do is show up and collaborate and be there and be in attendance. It's not going there, and this feud has been going on for nearly 3 years. The villages have asked the county to come and speak with them, and the county won't move. Fine, whatever it is, probably lasts till the next election, and however long that is. And when we take the vote, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. I've just asked for a recorded vote.
Councillor Ankert.
I find there's very little difference in the word partnership meeting or collaboration. I don't want to bring up this letter that was brought forward from the villages, but that letter was egregious. They choose not to address it. That is on them. So if Town of Strathmore wants to meet with the county, we're wide open for that meeting. Changing a partnership meeting into a collaboration meeting is just semantics, so I will be voting against this.
And just for clarification, there was a letter that was sent 2-3 years ago. It wasn't all the villages. There was 2 involved, not all 3, just for clarification. Go ahead.
So just for clarification, if we got invited to Strathmore for collaboration meeting and Rocky Ford or Standard weren't invited, we'd happily go. Yeah, we go to Wademsey meetings, we go to housing meetings, we go to WFCSS meetings with these villages. Nothing said. They're all partners in everything, and we keep going. But for some reason, we can't go if it's maybe perceived to be a partnership meeting.
For me, if there's no agenda set before you go into a meeting, it's a wide open canvas. And being that there's a history there, there should be an agenda set and a very clear path forward. And we also have a process in the MGA where you're supposed to have, we talked about this before, where there was no bylaw set about these meetings and what's the purpose and everything else. All the other partnerships that you speak of have been they're operational in nature. You're operating a specific task. It has a board that is assigned that task and a path forward. So comparing the two really is not appropriate. Go ahead.
You talk about a history. Ever since the county was formed, I think the latest formation and ministerial rule was in around 1960. Counties always promoted partnership in the county. So that's the history. Partnership started back then, and we're dealing with things as they come up now with a handshake and a thing. Now we have to have agreements. That's fine. That'll come up later too. But the county has a long history where we supported everyone in the county. That is our history.
Any further discussion?
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Go ahead, Reeve Link.
Thank you. Just some thoughts. Would it be possible to consider sending correspondence to the villages of Rocky Ford and Standard prior to consideration of attendance at the Town of Strathmore meeting, reiterating our request for them to, retract their letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. We have asked that previously. It is not Wheatland County that has been delaying the resumption of the Wheatland Regional Partnership meetings. It is the two villages who chose to send that letter with inaccurate statements. And so I wonder if it's prudent to request that they revisit that, retract the letter, and then we could consider this request. I also fully support Councillor Bigger's comments around requesting an agenda, and if this were to be an ongoing meeting forum, I agree with Deputy Reeve Clausen that we should be also requesting a development of terms of reference. But yes, to Councillor Custer's question, unequivocally, I would support meeting with the town of Strathmore and the village of Hazar. However, we do have a council motion indicating that we would not be attending the partnership meetings. And I also would agree with Councillor Eichert's comments around, just the semantics of whether it's a partnership meeting or a collaboration meeting. I do strongly believe in collaboration and in partnership, and I think this entire region would be stronger. It is unfortunate that we have seen repeated examples by colleagues in other municipalities that are not conducive to either partnership or collaboration. And the ball is in their court to address that historic letter. They have had ample time to do so and have refused to. So just requesting council consideration to perhaps resend that letter to the villages and see if we can straighten this out.
Thank you, Reeve for your input. Motion on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Larson.
I would disagree with those statements. I think more with Councillor Kester. There has been collaboration except for the last 3 years. I think this is quite petty. I'm very firmly in the thought that the only thing that's going to solve this is an election. And I hope our ratepayers are paying attention.
That's an opinion you can have, sir. Motion on the floor. If this motion gets defeated, pretty much sends the message. Reeve Link has suggested a letter. I will ask if this motion still stands as is. Okay. I'll call the question. Bear with me, my computer just reset. This is a recorded vote, so I will read it out when it comes in. The motion has failed in favor. Am I right? Yeah, I'm right here, right? Or did it pass? It failed.
The motion was lost.
Motion was lost, sorry. In favor, myself, Kester, Larson, against Bigger, Eichert, Laprise, and Link. And I want to clarify my vote. I would have voted the other way, but my computer was coming up and I clicked the wrong thing. So actually it would have gone the other way. And I'm not going to hide from that. I'll stand behind it. So that was just a technical thing. Any further discussion on this issue? There was a discussion of possibly resending and requesting further progress on an issue from a few years ago.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Go ahead.
I would move that council direct administration to draft a letter from the Reeve to the mayors and council and administration of the village of Rocky Ford and the village of Standard, reiterating our request to retract the letter that was sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs in order to advance regional collaboration.
Okay, we're waiting for it to get typed up on the screen. Just wait for the motion to come forward. I did not get it also. Okay, can you repeat that, Reeve Link?
I will do my level best. I will move that council direct administration to draft a letter from the Reeve to the mayor, council, and administration of the Village of Rocky Ford and the Village of Standard requesting the retraction of their letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. And I guess just for clarity, we could add regarding Wheatland County.
Would you also consider CCing Minister of Municipal Affairs? Since he is the subject of the letter.
Did you hear that, Reeve-Ling?
Yeah, I'm comfortable copying Minister McIver. And I guess there was just a couple of words at the end of so with letter with regard to Wheatland County, and then the last part of the motion was in an effort to advance regional collaboration. And yes, happy to CC Minister McIver in his office.
Perfect. Go ahead, Councillor Larson.
I would suggest that this is a pointless motion since the motion to attend the regional collaboration meeting was lost. I'm not sure what purpose this will serve. This has been tried once before. I don't know that we'll expect a different outcome.
I would hope we get an outcome that we can move forward.
We have been accused of not reaching out to the villages. We are telling them what we require in order for them to mend relationships. That's all it is.
So the motion on the floor, and I'm going to read it out, the council directed administration to draft a letter from the Reeve to Mayor, Council, and Administration of the Villages of Rocky Ford and the Village of Standard, and CC Minister McIver's office requesting a retraction of the letter to the Municipal Affairs regarding Wheatland County in an effort to advance regional collaboration. Everyone clear on that? It's that letter that's from 2022 that we had council motion that passed to not attend and for various reasons, and very specific, it hasn't changed. So I will ask for a recorded vote on this. And I will call the question. Oh, sorry, I did not see that. There's a comment before I call the question.
I can't remember, but I'm sure since this letter was sent to the villages, I believe they have corresponded back and said they would like to meet with Wheatland County, and they would even consider having a mediator present so we can hash through this in a meeting. And I don't know if the county replied or not. I'm just looking at CAO.
Yes, and through the chair, I just can't recall all of the history behind it. We could look at the history. It would just take some time to get all of the stuff back. I do know that there was that motion passed. I did email that out to council, and that's as much work as I put into it.
Okay, any further discussion? Call the question. Oh, questions have been called.
I'm going to have a hard time voting for this motion without seeing a letter. So I will vote no.
Okay.
For that reason. I'm not against the letter per se, but I have to see the letter to support it.
That motion is carried. For are Bigger, Eggert, myself, LaPrice, and Link. Against are Kester and Larson. Sorry.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Yes. Go ahead, Reeve Link.
I would also like to move that we direct administration to draft a letter to the mayor, council, and administration of the town of Strathmore, responding to their invitation indicating the previous motion that was supported by council and the work that we are doing to, sorry, I'll just explain where I'm going and then we can draft a better motion. But essentially just responding to the mayor and Town of Strathmore Council, perhaps the Village of Hazard as well, so they have a response, indicating that we are happy to meet regarding collaboration, but at this point we have outstanding legal issue with the Village of Rocky Ford and the Village of Standard, and that we are endeavoring to address that prior to the meeting. I don't want to leave the town hanging, but I wanted some council direction before we respond. So I thought Councillor Lapriest did an excellent job of summarizing the current council position with her response to the Town of Strathmore. So perhaps something along those lines that, you know, collaboration is important and critical to the future success of this region, but that we do need to address this outstanding legal issue prior to that collaboration meeting with all parties. So I will, now that I've explained that, I will endeavor to word a motion. So I will move that council direct administration to draft a letter to the mayor, council, and administration of the Town of Strathmore and Village of Hazard, indicating our strong support for regional collaboration, however, indicating we have an outstanding legal issue with the villages of Rocky Ford and Standard, and that we are endeavoring to address that. But unfortunately, Wheatland County Council does not support attendance at the current meeting.
I'm wondering if there's a way we can kind of steer it towards the IDP and ICF process that already has that in place. I guess that the administration could discuss that at some point. Councillor Kester, go ahead.
Why would we not include Rocky Ford and Standard? And in the same letter say we strongly support regional collaboration.
I'm happy to include all villages in this correspondence. Council, mayor, or mayor's council and administration of the town and the villages.
Councillor Rigger?
I actually think it should be only, the invite only came from Town of Strathmore. I think the letter to not attend should only be to Town of Strathmore. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I certainly see your point, Councillor Bigger. I'm just thinking just to keep all adjacent municipalities abridged of the county's position. And that's why I support Councillor Kester's proposed amendment. My rationale for including the Town of Strathmore and Village of Hazard initially was that I assumed that Village of Standard and Village of Rocky Ford would have some information from the correspondence requesting the retraction of their letter. But I do agree. I think it's prudent to fully explain it in this correspondence. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion on the floor.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. I will call the question. And that is carried. For are Bigger, Eichert, Clausen, Priest, and Link. Against are Kester and Lauerson. I've had a request for a break at this time. We will come back in 10 minutes at 10:20. Resuming the council meeting. Is Reeve Link online still? Good, okay. So we're resuming at 7.1 Reeve's report. Reeve Link.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Just a few things to highlight from my report. Starting on page 55 of the package, we had a good District 2 directors meeting. There were a number of resolutions that were brought forward by municipalities within our district, and I also brought forward the resolutions that we were anticipating to bring to the district meeting, and there was strong support from the directors in attendance at that meeting. A few highlights from Community Futures Wild Rose. I want to reiterate my excitement about the Heart of the Community program. I'm incredibly excited about how this project will recognize small and medium-sized businesses' critical role in our communities. And we've been absolutely blown away by the number of nominations that we have received. So if you recall, we have split up the 15 municipalities that make up the Wild Rose region essentially into 4 quadrants. And each quadrant we're focusing on for 1 quarter of 2025 and accepting nominations for small and medium-sized businesses. And this is really just to highlight the importance of those businesses in our communities and to recognize their contributions. I also want to let everybody know that the board once again set our interest rate at a fixed rate of prime plus 2%. Historically, we have had a matrix that will, based on a number of factors, set that interest rate. And so for some higher risk borrowers, that interest rate can be significantly higher. But the board, based on considerations like just the high overnight rate and the pressures that our entrepreneurs have been experiencing over the last several years, I wanted to do what we could to foster that business growth. So we decided to extend that fixed rate. This is really good news for entrepreneurs in our region. We also received correspondence from MLA DeYoung during our Community Futures to our Community Futures, outlining extended provincial support for the digital economy program. I want to thank MLA DeYoung for conveying that to us. This is a critical program for supporting, again, our small and medium-sized business and their online presence and a kind of ability to compete with some of the larger online presence stores that have an online presence. We also approved our 2025 budget and operations plan. We also, following in alignment with our procurement policy and compliant with legislation, we awarded a contract for renovations to our lower level, and I will let council know when those spaces are available for rent. I also want to just indicate that I had put in my report that I attended that Southern Alberta Regional Victim Serving Society introduction on January 29th. Unfortunately, the wrong link was included in the calendar invitation, and I was not able to attend that. So I did follow up with the organization, and I'm looking forward to seeing the work that they will do. But please, I will ask for that to be excluded from my report. With that, I will move that my report be accepted as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Reeve Link. Any questions on the report? Not seeing any. Motions on the floor. I will call the question. That is carried. Move on to my report. It's on page 57 of the agenda, and I see that I screwed up on the bottom. disregard all the December stuff when I was doing this. I forgot to delete all that stuff, but that's my fault, not administration's. So I had two Energy from Waste meetings and then since then we've taken ourselves out of that. And I want to thank council for giving the support to Energy from Waste for as long as we had done, and I appreciate you supporting me be there. And I understand why we have removed ourselves. And then the ASB conference in Edmonton, it was a pleasure to attend and be back on the ASB board. Learning, to me, always the new technology that's out there is really exciting, and the one for the cattle, the wireless fencing and stuff is really interesting. I've actually followed up on that personally and got some pricing and stuff. It's really quite interesting, and the drone technology and stuff. Not that I'm a big producer, but it's something that would work within a small footprint like I do. Drumheller District Solid Waste, we've approved the budgets, and of course we're still reviewing the operations with EPR. EPR, for those of you that don't know, it's the province extended producer responsibility. So basically all your recycling on your residential side is going to be taken up by the producer of that recycling through different things. They've hired Circular Materials, looks after it all in the province. So all the existing ways we gather recycling are going to change in the future. So we're trying to, at Drumheller, figure out how that's going to fit in our operation role in the future. As of right now, everything's going to stay the same within 18 months, and this timeline is not ours. This is the Circular Materials in the province. We're going to see how it rolls out. There could be a lot of changes, more effective ways when you're looking from a very local scope to a more of a regional scope to a Southern Alberta scope. You'll see different things go different ways, and that's just the reality of it. I'll put my motion for the acceptance of my report for the month of January 2025 as presented, and I'm happy to take any questions. Go ahead, Councillor Kester.
I had a few comments from some producers in the county. They chemical judge the return of them. Not all retailers, they will take back their own containers, but if they didn't buy it from them, there could be some hesitation. And they are getting these, I guess you would call them pesticide containers, from outside of any retailers in the county. And there is limited options for them to dispose of these things. I guess they could put them in a garbage bag and throw them in the dump, or I guess it's old practices will all come back, and it'll be Eddie that'll look after them. So I'm just wondering if Drumheller Solid Waste is aware of this problem. The county's aware of it now, and how are we going to move forward with this? We don't want to revert back to past practices and where producers end up burning these things. Since we took them things out, I don't think it's a big pile of them, but we should accommodate it somehow. I don't know how we would. And if we do take them to the transfer site, I'm thinking Drumheller Solid Waste would have to be aware. So I don't know where to start to fix this. We got a few months before spraying season starts again. So it's just this way as information for now.
Yeah, thanks. I've heard this comment a lot from, and it has been discussed. Clean Farms has also taken over basically that portfolio, and all at our transfer sites we have those sheds, and they're all owned by them, and they're going to be dismantled. And they're telling us that you won't have to be a collector anymore, and all these same concerns that you have brought forward by many of the board members. At this time, we're being assured that Clean Farms is going to handle it. So can they put it in last thing I want to see, like yourself, is to have them burn it and or go into landfill. But it's definitely keep at them. We'll keep at them about it and how we can see it going. They've basically taken it out of our hands. And then what was the other one? The Dangerous Goods Recycling. I forget what the name of the program was, where they go around and toxic waste roundup. they have those too, and the funding for that has been severely cut back over the years. So there's a buildup of a lot of paints and all the kinds of stuff that we try to get off of farms. And not just farms, but any households, so. I have Councilor Eichert.
So let me get this straight. So we had a system that worked pretty good, and we replaced it with a system that doesn't work because it's obviously got big shortfalls. So who's responsible for this new system that doesn't work? Like it's typical bureaucracy in the fact that we got some pencil neat geek in Edmonton saying, well, we can do this system better than the counties have been doing it for the last 50 years. And we just go along with it. I mean, I'm sorry, like, I'm not sure there should be some way that we can say we're not going to be involved in this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I understand, like, it doesn't make any sense for a farmer who, with the availability of the internet, is able to buy chemicals, I would assume anywhere in Western Canada, probably in Canada itself, have it shipped to his place. Like, how do you control that? Like, yeah, the easiest way to do it was the way we were doing it. And then we come up with this boneheaded idea that we're going to put the onus on the retailer. And what happens is we're going to have to figure out a way to store chemical containers that cannot be recycled or that the retailer's not going to take back. Government doesn't do anything well.
Well, with the EPR, this is a Canada-wide thing. It's weird. Alberta was the last province to going to EPR. And that's something that has been pushed by a green agenda, I would say, that people want to feel good about recycling. So the easiest they felt it was to just put it on the people that produced it. And kind of the same thing goes with Clean Farms idea. It's the same kind of thing. It's you buy this product, you should be responsible, or you supply this product, you should be responsible for recycling it. So they're taking over it. Yes, I agree with you. They're assuring us and that they are going to make it happen flawlessly. And it should be if you buy chemicals from company 1, 2, 3, they have to take the jugs back from everybody. That's what I've been told, and hearing different. That is something we're not the regulator on. It's going to be the province. But I will take this all back. I sit with Alberta Care. I'm a director on there, and it's been discussed lots. We have a direct line to Alberta Environment on these issues, and definitely will back that up. Go ahead.
I don't know what come first, the chicken or the egg, or collecting chemical pails or Clean Farms. I know who's taken it over, appeared to. I think the county should have a lot of credit for developing the collection of them in the first place. It's no different than the ag plastics that we've developed without any government. The grain bags, and we found a recycling, and now the province has taken up on it. That's great. We see a need and we fill it. So if there is a need for these things, I think Wheatland County, if very last, we need to step up somehow and get involved. Maybe we collect them someplace before we tear them all down, or I think it needs to be looked at. I don't know how big the problem is or how much it'll grow. And if it gets to be a problem, I don't want to see restrictions put on shipping full containers just because you can't get rid of the empty ones. That's not a way to improve anything. So for now, it's just a seed to think about. I think administration can kind of think of things before we dismantle anything. Just see how many empty containers come back. If there's just a few, well, then maybe we can accommodate them. But if there gets to be a whole pile, like Tom says, we got a bigger problem here than we know. But we don't know how big it is till we actually see it.
And from the Drumheller District Solid Waste Board, it's the same feeling with all the other counties as well. We're kind of, don't want to dismantle anything until we know it's going to work properly. So we are holding off as much as we can. Any other questions? Motion on the floor, I will call the question. That's carried. We'll move on to Division 1 Council Report.
All right, my report is on page 58 in the package. So for ASB, I'm pleased to serve as chair for another term on that. Our ASB board has approved the 2026 summer tour with Russ Muntrath working as our tour coordinator. So that will be exciting things coming ahead. He did a really great job creating a business case for it that linked very solidly to both Wheatland County and the ASB's strategic directions, strategic plans. So he did a very good job of that. I also want to send out kudos. Our BMO award nominee for Wheatland County is David and Laura Lee Salmons, who farm just north of Gleason. So they're a very deserving family, and look forward to for them to receive the award this summer. Then Alice, we had a meeting, and just want to say that our group is super proud of our new farmer liaison, Rod Vergowan. He received the Jerry Teyu Memorial Award for Excellence in Rangeland Management at our meeting. And so this is an award that's given to a landowner in Alberta or Montana who inspires environmental stewardship, commitment on working landscapes while demonstrating the art and science of range management. So super proud of Rod for that. He is an awesome steward of the land and a great community member. Most of us attended the ASB Provincial Conference in Edmonton. And during the chairs meeting, we discussed the ASB PC is trying to fine-tune their advocacy while still ensuring that all resolutions are given the attention they deserve, but they have they want to just try to highlight some of the critical resolutions when they're talking to the minister. Trying to talk about all of them is diluting the message, I guess. And so they had proposed a way of doing that, but I think the membership wanted them to revisit it. They were looking at the top 3 issues in each of the regions, but it turns out that then when it comes down to it, some regions aren't really represented that way. So I think they're going to come back with some new proposal for doing that. At the conference, I thought the speakers were excellent. Lots of really informative presentations, like you said, on ag technology. Really good one on bees that I didn't know that much about bees, so now I do. I would say that the resolution sessions are tricky. I'm not sure. I really appreciate excuse me, RMA has a, I don't know whether they vet their resolutions a little bit more or how it flows more easily at RMA, but at ASB, there's a lot of amendments to the amendments, and it becomes kind of a frustrating session. But anyways, there were some amendments that went through that were good, and yeah. I also want to talk about the provincial ASB. They've drafted 2 position papers. One is on Richardson ground squirrels, which outlines 3 positions that group is taking. So number 1, advocacy for the reinstatement of 2% liquid strychnine under strict regulatory oversight. So I think that's a good thing that they're still going to continue to do, even though they have been told time and time again that it's not possible. They also are going to advocate for the development of new effective alternatives. So they have got some alternatives, but they're not that effective. So they're going to try and push for more research. And then thirdly, enhanced educational programs and supports for integrated pest management strategies. So using other tools like encouraging predators in the area, hawks and things like that. So I think the three-pronged approach is the right way to go. It's a very frustrating thing, but they do continue to work on it. They know it's an issue. And I'll just make one more point on that, that the emergency use registration, which is something people keep asking about, it has to come from Alberta Agriculture. So as spring comes around and we start to see those guys running around and eating our crops, we really need to send some evidentiary letters to the minister. I would send it to your MLA, Minister Sigurdsson, and MP Shields, and just try and give evidence of the kinds of losses that you're experiencing. And if they get enough of those, they will be forced to, maybe get an emergency use or something like that. So that's what I would recommend there. And then the other, another important position paper that they've created is on farm saved seed. And there is a way, I should have put a link in my report, but there is a way that farmers can provide feedback on the provincial ASB website. So if you were to go to agricultureserviceboards.com and under the ASB position statements, you'll see exactly what they're proposing. And it's really just in response to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's Seed Regulatory Modernization Initiative. And that is trying to align Canada's seed regulations with international standards. But it has implications for farmers, and so farmers should go on there and make sure that they are consulted in this process. So with that, I will move to have my report accepted as presented, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Kester.
Not so much a question as maybe a point to ponder again. You said we should send evidence of this gopher damage up there. When we go to these conferences, they always rely on AFSC to provide their feedback. And they made quite a point of it this year that gopher damage is an insurable loss. But let's just set up a scenario here. Let's say I got half a section of barley, half a section of canola even, and the gophers come and they clean off 10 acres. So that's an insurable loss. But they don't pay out anything unless the whole half section suffers a deficit in the target production. So nothing, AFSC doesn't report any gopher damage to the province. And if they do report, if there was a dry year and you didn't meet your target, and then it was, oh, it's a dry year. So if they want to do something and get some hard evidence on what the loss is, they could spot insure all the gopher damage. Say there's 20 acres out, and that 20 acres is come and inspected, measured, production put on it, and paid out as such. Then they will have their evidence, and they'll know how much it's costing our producers here. So that's just a thought. I should be talking about this in the ASB thing, but I'm strongly considering we should maybe support a motion for this for next convention, that this is a way, this is how the government understands things, economic loss. You can say how much they're hurting, but if they don't see any numbers, they just think it's just a couple people whistling. So it's something I think we should work for. Just a suggestion.
Great input. Any other discussion? Just seeing if anybody else has any other inputs.
Sorry. I don't see your mouth.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Call a question. That's carried. Division 3 Council Report. Go ahead.
My report isn't on the server. I'll just discuss. Mostly because the lack of contents that would be on it. I was away for a while, and I did happen to be able to get onto the Wheatland County Council meeting and to Wademsa for the most part. And I appreciate I missed the conference, sadly, but thanks for Shannon. That was a great report that you put on there. And Shannon actually, or Councillor Laprise actually attended the ARC meeting for me. And I'm glad to hear that they'll be doing their annual mental health barbecue held at Kinsman Park. They have it on Mother's Day weekend, the Saturday of May 10th from 11 to 2. They've had really good response to it, attracting approximately 400 visitors. She had reported they've done a good job with that. So I'm glad to see that going. And with that, I'll ask my report to be accepted.
Motions on the floor. Any questions of Councillor Bigger? No questions. Call the question. And that is carried. We'll move on to Division 4 Council Report.
My report is on the server. Most of it's been covered. Councillor Laprise, to say that the ASB resolution session was problematic is an understatement. I mean, we could have had a PowerPoint presentation on how not to do a resolution session. The fact that they're looking at their system, that is fantastic. Good meeting. The information, the speakers were really good. So I guess with every good thing, there's got to be, or there usually is something that is negative. I think everything else has been covered. I went, there was a Wademsa meeting on January 28th. Just for everybody's information, we signed an extension for the EMS contract, and that will run until September 2026. And for Councillor Laprise, again, I misspelled preforming. I apologize for that, and it won't happen ever again. And we are in the we're in the middle of an ongoing search for a new CEO for the Wademsa, and I think that basically covers everything I've done. So I will move my report. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Councillor Kester.
Just curious, this contract you signed, I'm thinking was with AHS. Which contract? Is it still the original contract, or has it been extended till now?
No, it's the original contract. None of the numbers have changed. They're just pushed it down the road.
Any other questions? I have, regards to Wademsa, so did the board actually review that contract before it was signed?
No, and the reason being is it's the original contract from 2017 or whatever the case may be. So decisions were made evidently. Well, what else are you going to do with it, right? Like, there's no opening for discussion. I know there's been asked for that too, but AHS in regards to EMS is trying to figure how to handle independent operations like Wademsa.
And then the performing the audit, is there a timeline on that they will? Because there was a lot of questions back when I was on the board, and it's nice to see that they're actually going to go through it and lay it out there and just hopefully answer all the questions. As I understand, it's starting, and everybody's just trying to figure out what is it? Is it a $2 million overpayment? Is it a $4 million overpayment? They're just trying to figure it out, and Wademsa says we're being as transparent as we possibly can. We're going to show them everything we've got. So it's going back as far as we can go back. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I will call the question. And that is carried. Move on to Division 6 Council report. Councillor Kester.
My report's on the server. I think everybody's touched on the ASB and the council meetings. On the housing, WHMB, on the 24th, we had our final meeting to submit the application for HPP. It was submitted, I forget the date, but it was on Tuesday the next week. And it was, I got an email back saying that they received it, so it's in. Part of this application, we received $150,000 from seed money from CMHC. I think we were approved in later half or part of September. We had till the end of December to spend it. I think we spent it all but 13,000, and it furthered not so much the application, but getting ready for development permit. So the application is in. I can't really give you any details. Maybe next meeting. The board hasn't had a chance to discuss it yet either. So when the board discusses it, and then we can release more information. So if any questions? If not, I'll move my report.
Motion on the floor. Any questions? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. And that is carried. Move on to Division 7 Council report, which was dropped this morning.
That's was handed out because it didn't get submitted till last night. But everything's been covered. I'm not even going to comment on the resolution session at the ASB. Yeah. So I'll just move my report as presented, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Robertson? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. Or did you make a motion? You made a motion. Okay, sorry. I'll call the question. We're experiencing technical difficulties.
I voted yes. I'll be the bully. There we go.
Oh no, nobody voted.
And that's carried. We'll move on to 8.11 CAO Officer Report, and I hope it's exciting to liven the mood.
It is. Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. Page 64 of your agenda package is the CAO monthly report for January 2025. As always, the resolution tracker is in the report. Starts on page 66. Anything in yellow is deemed ongoing. Anything colored in green is deemed complete. Any activities that were done during the month of January are kind of outlined on page 64. If there's any questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of administration? Go ahead.
I got one question. I don't think it's in your report. I know it ain't. From one of the boards I sit on, only one, there was a question on director insurance, county carry insurance on their appointees to housing board. I've never looked at the policy. I don't know if there's a policy available. And I don't know if it would be the housing board have to carry it or if council has it because it's their employee. I just thought I'd ask you.
Through the chair, unless GM Adamson may know off the top of his head, he looks after insurance. I used to. That's a question I just don't know. I do know that councillors do have some protection under the Municipal Government Act. And we do have insurance for certain items. That one specifically, unless General Manager Adamson has the answer for you, we'll have to take that one back. But when we can find out and circulate that answer to all of council by email. Appointed members at large. Okay. We will find that out unless you do have the answer. Okay, we'll find that out and send it to all of council.
Any other questions?
Deputy Reeve Clausen, just a comment.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to commend the Wheatland County team on the WCB final claim costs being almost 72% lower than the cumulative total for all the other MDs and counties in Alberta. I think that's just excellent, and I'm so grateful for our commitment to safety and for those results. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll move that council accepts the January 2025 Chief Administrative Officer report as information.
Motion's on the floor from Councillor Priest. Any questions? I'll call the question. Oh, sorry.
Give me a minute. I just see that 72% lower when I read it this time. It looks like we're 70% lower than the total of all the things, and that looks bad. When you total up all the municipalities, and then we're 72% lower than the total.
Of claims
We got
costs.
100 municipalities reporting. Their cumulative total could be $1 million. That would suggest we are lower at only $500,000. It just maybe.
Yeah.
First time I read it, it looked like, yeah, we're below the average, but then when I read it again, for some reason, we're lower than the cumulative total. The average of the cumulative total maybe, or just the way I read it this time.
Through the chair, it should have been the average of the cumulative totals. So a good point, but good or bad, we include something in the report.
Yeah, okay.
There's motion on the floor. I will call the question. That is carried. Second motion. Go ahead, Councillor.
That council accept the February 4th, 2025 council resolution tracker as information.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That is carried. We'll move on to 2025 proclamations. Hear ye, hear ye.
Hear you, council. Brian from administration again. Page 75 of your agenda package is a streamlined version of the 2025 proclamations that Wheatland County Council declares. So instead of bringing these individually one by one, administration decided to bring these all together just as one. So it doesn't kind of come back every time. There's been no opposition to any declarations declared by council in the last number of years. So we thought it would just be a good way to streamline these, get them out and going so we can prepare our advertisement and promotional materials ahead of time. If there's any questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I move the council approve the following proclamations and authorize the Reeve to sign declarations. Economic Developers Week, May 11th to 17th. Public Works Week, May 18th to 24th. Seniors Week, June 2nd to 8th. Rail Safety Week, June 16th to 22, and Health and Safety Week, August 11th to 17th. All in 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. That is carried. Move on to 8.13, 2025 Spring RMA Convention, meeting with RCMP Commanding Officer.
Yes, good morning, council. Brian again from administration. On page 78 is a RFD for a request to meet with K Division at the Spring RMA meeting. The email invitation is on page 81 of your agenda package. And the last K Division, we did have I believe the meeting did occur in fall 2024. The topics went into are listed in the report on page 78. Council does wish to organize this meeting with the K Division at RCMP, or sorry, at the RMA convention. Council would administration would just need a resolution to proceed with that. If council would also just like to accept this report as information, that's there as well. If there's any questions about the report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Council discussion, wishes, commands. Should we meet with the minister, or RCMP commanding officer? Do we feel that's valid? Any hot issues we need to talk about? Motion to accept his information.
I'll move that we accept this as information.
Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? I will call the question. That's carried.
And just so council is aware, we will continue having the department RCMP commanding officers to council for local issues. Thank you.
They do quarterly reports, correct? Yeah.
Deputy
Move
Reeve
on.
Clausen,
Go ahead. Reeve Link.
or to CAO Henderson. Could we just have administration follow up with Staff Sergeant Wilgosh, just letting him know that council didn't deem that a meeting was required at this time?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Move on to 8.21, Corporate and Financial Services Report.
Good morning, Council. Corey from Administration, here to report on the January 2025 Corporate and Financial Services Report, found on page 82 of the Council package. I don't really have too much to add to this report, but I did want to just kind of highlight, there was a question from Councillor Kester. You've been having some good questions. And so we did look into the rate for the CVIP, which is currently posted at $300 an hour. Staff did look into those rates and after some research identified that the market rate's closer to 200. So the intent will be to include that in our next fee schedule update. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions you might have. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions to administration? Go ahead.
I'll move the council accept the corporate and financial service report for January 2025 as information.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I will call the question then. And that is carried. Move on to 8.22, County in-kind donations Q4 2024.
Morning, Council. Joel from Administration. This next agenda item is just our standard quarterly report for in-kind donations and tracking the valuation of those. So Q4 obviously wraps out the calendar year. And as typical, we have a table itemizing all the reported contributions made by the county. This one report is a little bit different, that we have a second table where we've just done some amendments to some ones that came up that relate to, I think, mainly Q2 of this year. So we've updated the historical values and comparatives on that. And then the table is just for council's information so they can see the specifics. Staff are available for any questions.
Thank you for the report. Any questions? No questions. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accepts the county in-kind donations update Q4 2024 report as information.
Motion's on the floor. Any discussion?
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Go ahead.
It's a couple of items are coming up like on the agenda that I'm wondering if somewhat tie to the in-kind, and it also ties to Wheatland County's commitment to collaboration in the region. And I'm just wondering if we could consider looking at services that are provided through the ICF, such as the road maintenance in Rocky Ford, or things like, actually, I think the the snow clearing is on here for Hazar, but if we could just review if there are any other services that are provided that are not on a cost recovery basis, and if those could also be integrated into the report, such as services that are outlined in the ICFs. Thank you.
Does administration understand that? Yeah. Council, think that's important? Believe so, yeah. I think it's important that we document everything that we do, so when there are questions about collaboration, we can actually prove that there is collaboration and how we're doing it. So it's important that we document it. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. That's carried. Move on to 8.23, financial statistics and comparative data.
Morning, Joel again from administration. Into the most interesting report of the day. I'm a little bit biased. Yeah, that's fair. It's before lunch. Yeah, so in this year's version of the report, just as a kind of a refresher, this is for the 2023 audited financial statements and comparatives to other municipalities. The 2022 year was presented in September of 2023. There was a little bit of delay in the comparative data sets that for the 2023 year, the province was updating their system, so we wouldn't anticipate as much delay when we get to 2024. So there's some background on that. Just similar to the 2022 report, we used this very similar or identical comparative municipalities, and there's a couple other metrics, but for the most part, the review was very similar. So I'll just kind of summarize, go through some of the background, the graphs, and just explain it a little bit. So our first section was the statement of operations, basically the net income or net loss, have you, depending on what year you're looking at. We added a little bit of a different approach in this graph. In prior years, we just did strictly the audited operational results, just as they were reported. But then this year, we also wanted to pull out the amortization and contributed assets. Those are non-cash items, so it gives just a little bit of a different perspective when comparing within the county of the audited values versus some of the non-cash. That's not strictly all the non-cash items, but just doing our best to pull the major ones out. Net financial assets. This is kind of in line with the reserves conversation as well. So the county found itself at a similar level at this point back to 2019. You can see there's an uptick trend and then kind of leveling off here to about $54 million in net financial assets. And then we wanted to show that in the context of local comparatives to other municipalities as well. Wheatland County's around the midpoint. I believe this was a similar position in 2022. They were about middle. I think they were maybe one up from there. So very similar position to back then. The reserves balances overall, when we've shown a split here, the unrestricted surplus versus the internally restricted. So the internally restricted reserves or surplus, those are those policy ones that council sets. So whether it's the roadways or the bridge reserves or Muirfield reserves, all those kind of ones that are specified for designated purposes, and the funds are set for that. And then unrestricted surplus is just any surplus that's not been designated as economic value that the county holds. So you can see here there's kind of a, similar to the net financial assets that we just showed, there's an uptick and then a little bit of a leveling off. And then in the report itself, we just kind of explained over that time there is a lot of pressures and investments made by the county. So gravel pits, the broadband investment, those are some cost pressures on the operating side. There's general inflationary pressures that no entity can be exempt from in the last few years. There's substantial capital investments, whether it's in new infrastructure for developing areas or A good one that's come up the last couple of years for capital is the bridge file replacement schedule, and there's been a lot of bridge file work the last couple of years as well. So lots of capital spending. And then lastly, in the report, we just kind of wanted to point out as well the tax strategy on the revenue side, kind of undertaken, that's partly to promote growth and also reduce pressures during this economic uncertainty. And this is also why in the reserve section, we included this discussion or some graphical presentations on the change in property tax revenue. This is just the municipal portion, not the school portion, but just municipal property tax revenue over this 6-year period when compared to the same comparing municipalities. And then this is a very similar type graph. It's just to compare the municipal tax revenue, the average change versus the operating expense change. And then we also threw in the CPI average for Calgary, which is 3%, just so that it kind of gives you a benchmark during that period as well. Finally, there's a comparison of the reserves. Again, Wheatland County finds itself kind of in the midpoint compared to a lot of its local peers. And then we just kind of end with discussion on financial liquidity. The county's in a strong position in this area, despite a little bit of a lower tick. The liquidity, essentially what we're looking at here is how much more liquid assets, cash, investments that could be taken out versus the liabilities, the total liabilities that would have, if it were to all be called immediately. This is kind of a ratio of how much more assets and liquid assets than liabilities are in existence. We also did note in the report, though, that a consideration has to be taken in that the asset management frameworks and planning that's underway, those aren't, they're not financial liabilities on the audited financial statements. So once that data comes in and we can look at it in the context of the financial reserves and reserves planning, that'll give kind of a better big picture of long-term financial planning. And again, just the same metric, just comparing to other local municipalities and seeing where we stand in terms of liquidity. Yeah, that concludes my presentation. Staff are available for any questions.
Thank you for the report. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accepts the financial statistics and comparative data report as information.
Thank you for the motion. Any discussion? Call the question. And that's carried. We will move on to 8.31 Community and Development Services Report. Welcome.
Good morning, Council. Sherry Vars with Administration to present the January 2025 Community and Development Services Report, which is found on page 103 of your agenda package. The only updates I'd like to highlight, which were not included in the report, was a little bit about the Calgary Regional Hydrogen Hub project, where Wheatland did get a portion of the Prairies Can grant, and it came out a little late, so the project's launched slowly, but it has officially launched with Calgary taking the lead and then a portion of the project allocated of the funding to the county, and we're working with CAO Henderson's office to move this project using internal resources. We were fortunate that one of the engineers in GM Bullock's department has experience working on hydrogen hub projects, so that's been beneficial to us. The consultant for this project, Transition Accelerator out of Edmonton, will be writing most of the reporting and is the consultant that will prepare the techno-economic report for the county. And we've started having regular meetings with this group, and the Calgary Economic Development Group is now starting to plan the official launch of this project, which will include elected officials, provincial officials, and they're hoping to set that up as in person in March. We worked around dates that would accommodate council as much as possible. And other than that, we're hoping that this project, and we just received our timeline, so it's pretty aggressive, and the county will be trying to engage with our stakeholders that have an input with this project. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question that I'm not sure. So I've just been hearing some concerns about requirements at community halls around like annual fire alarm testing, water testing, CO2 testing. Just the costs are going up all the time. I think it has to do with the study that we kind of did about community hall efficiencies or something. Anyways, I know that we are arm's length from the CURB board, but I was wondering if it's possible to ask them if they would consider expanding their operational costs. Right now, they'll only accept utilities and insurance, and I wondered if it's possible to get them to consider looking at the costs of all these annual testing that we have to do as well. Or if being a county-owned and leased building, the county could offer it as an in-kind service, something like that. So I don't know. I just thought it might be something that the department could look at and consider and see if there's ways of helping these community groups out.
Through the chair to council, we'll look into that and investigate ways that we can assist.
Thank you.
Not all halls are county-owned, though. There's a lots that are community.
No, absolutely. And that's why, you know, from a CURB perspective, it might be a better solution. I don't know.
Any other questions?
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Go ahead, Reeve Lang.
I want to thank Councillor Laprise for bringing that forward. I fully support just looking if there are ways for the county, whether through CURB or in kind, to support our community groups that operate those facilities, whether they're county owned or not. I support that. Also just wondering, I see the fire response data on page 106 and 107. Just wondering about the data for the Rocky Ford Fire Department.
They're looking into it, Reeve Lang.
Yeah, we'll have to update that through the chair to council.
It may have been missed, Reeve Lang. They'll have to update us on that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much.
And I just want to comment about the signage. I've seen the Hamlet sign at Muirfield, and I believe Cheadle got one too. Nope. Not yet? Not yet. And even the one out front here, this one out front's bothered me every time I come up here. It was getting pretty old and decrepit, but it's nice to see it changing. I realize this has been an ongoing project for a number of years, started with, and I'll say it was all internal work, basically, that come up with the design and everything, and it's worked out really well, and I still hear lots of compliments on the design, and it's nice to support our hamlets too, so looks really good. Council's wishes.
Just on the signage thing, I've got a question from a ratepayer. Just how much did that pylon sign cost?
Through the chair, it was around 55,000.
55,000?
Yes.
I lied.
For the one out front here? Seems really high. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Council's wishes?
I'll move that council accepts the January 2025 Community and Development Services Report as information.
Thank you. Councilor Laprise again. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? I will call the question. That is carried. We're moving on to 8.32, sale of plan number 2312021, Area A and Area B. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Taylor Feltz with the county's Planning and Development Services team here again to present the sale of Plan 231-20211, Areas A and Areas B for Council's consideration. Title for Area A and Area B were created from the closure of undeveloped road allowances adjacent to Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 0915311, which is located east of Stobart Lake. The applicant presented an appraisal assessment to determine the per acre value of these lands. The values are included in my report. The value of Area A was determined to be $15,194, and the value of Area B was determined to be $13,640. The applicant has agreed in principle to purchase these lands at the values presented. And should council approve the sale of these lands, staff will meet with the interested buyer and execute the purchase and sales agreement and proceed to register the transfer of Alberta land titles. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes. Councilor Reichert.
I'll move that council approve the sale of plan 2312021 Area A and Area B for the amount stipulated in the market value appraisal.
Thank you, Councilor Reichert. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will then call the question. And that has carried. We'll move on to 8.33, Village of Hazar Funding Agreement Request.
Good morning, Council. Dave from Administration. On page 122 of your Council agenda package, the report for the Village of Hazar Funding Agreement Request. The Village of Hazar submitted a letter dated January 27, 2025, requesting that Whelan County Council consider renewing the Village Infrastructure Funding Agreement. Previously, funding has been provided through the County Regional Infrastructure Services Program, CRISP, and the Village Funding Agreement, which expired in 2023. Administration is recommending Council direct administration to collaborate with the Village Administration to draft a new service agreement that aligns with the Village's infrastructure and funding needs and priorities. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Kester.
I'll make a motion that council directs administration to work with the Village of Hazar, Rocky Ford, and Standard to draft an infrastructure funding agreement for each respective administration, and to present the draft to council for consideration. I wasn't aware that this agreement, that's the motion, comment. I wasn't aware that this lapsed. It looks like we didn't pay anything last year on these agreements. I believe Strathmore's up and whole. Yeah, we should have looked after this last year. It's just part of what we do. No, haven't done for a while. I'll put that motion on the floor.
Motion's on the floor. Council discussion.
I was just going to say, I just think this is a great way to address this. In the past, we've sat around here trying to identify ways of allocating money to each of them fairly, and I think it's just a better idea to work with each of them individually, negotiating just what their needs are and how we can help. I think it's a better way to support our neighbors, and I did note, kudos to Hazar for bringing forward the letter of request. I think that's good for them for, we didn't address it apparently, so I'm glad they brought it forward.
Yeah, for council's clarification, this isn't required funding. It's something I believe that we've done on free will from councils in the past. And it was a program that's been set up, Councillor Kester probably know better than me, it's probably a number of years, and it's kind of evolved mostly for infrastructure. I hope it stays that way. So yeah, it did lapse, but also there's two sides to the story. Do we have to automatically renew these agreements, or should they be engaging in them? Like, again, it's an optional thing. It's not something we have to do, so. Council discussion? Motions on the floor? Any further discussion? So the motion is changed, just so it's basically all the villages instead of just one? Everybody's clear on that? Okay,
Deputy Reeve Crossan.
go ahead, Reeve Link.
I won't be supporting the motion, and I just want to outline my rationale why. At this point, we only have a request from the Village of Hazar, and I would support Councillor Laprise's comments that I would prefer to approach these agreements on a case-by-case basis with each of the villages. Just wanted to outline my rationale for not supporting the motion that's on the floor.
Thank you. I have similar thoughts on that as well. It's, I don't want to be grouped all together on these. I'd rather individuals, because it's like it's an optional thing. We don't have to do it. So, any further discussion? Go ahead.
I had a question. There was a chart in here somewhere where our IDPs, we needed to sign new ones. I don't know if they've been completed. Can't remember where it's at. And I'm wondering if this is something that, because we do those yearly, right? We could fit this in or no?
Through the chair to council, the ICFs are for servicing, and this is for infrastructure. It could work towards doing an agreement for repairs or new infrastructure, and we could work it in to that document and then include it as something that we provide. But by definition, I would say that infrastructure is not a service because it's not an intermunicipal service that we're providing on both sides of the boundary.
Councillor Priest and then Councillor Kester.
So I will be in support of the motion. I still believe that that they should be negotiated individually. And I think it's okay for us to reach out to Rockiford and Standard to say we are looking at our past agreements and looking to update them and then start negotiations there. Yeah, I'm okay with the motion how it is.
Okay. Councillor Kester?
Historically, the counties just offered these up. It was led by the county. It wasn't an ask by the villages. And the county just offered up the money. I'm in agreement that we negotiate with each municipality and see what their needs are. And that way it's part of the agreement and the county can gauge. We used to ask when we give the money for a report and what they spent it on. Now, if we negotiate it with them, we can see how their report matches to what they actually needed, and if they were successful, and if they received enough money or with inflation or whatever. I think that'd be a more prudent thing. It gives a more thoughtful response into how we are spending our money and helping our neighbors. I like that. I like that.
Go ahead.
I actually like the idea of that too, for the fact that it's important that we know what the villages around us need for infrastructure. I just heard some, horror stories of villages that could no longer exist, and they were having to take them into the county, and it would be good for us to know where everybody's sitting and keep those communications going for infrastructure.
Go ahead, Councillor Kester.
That's a good point. If we allow these villages to slide down the hill and they eventually become a hamlet, it becomes a huge liability for the county. So that's why I'm in favor of helping the villages out. It keeps their autonomy, but it also makes them a viable, and in future, it's just easier for everything. That's all I'm gonna say.
Any further discussion?
I'll be voting against including the villages of Rocky Ford and Standard because there's a lawsuit outstanding against that, and we want a retraction of that letter. The letter was wrong, and I will go to my grave maintaining that that letter was wrong. So I will be voting against including the villages other than Hazard.
Thank you. I struggle with this because my history, I've worked for villages and worked for counties over the years, and I look at them as they want autonomy, but they want help. And, you know, I sit here as a counselor for Wheatland County, and I don't think it's really up to me to give my taxpayers money to another completely autonomous municipality when they can raise their taxes, just like we can. And I have a hard time with us being a funder for this, and I always have, because I understand how they want autonomy, but they want help. So there is a provincial government, there is a federal government that has access to way more funds than we do. And those programs are out there. And so I just on that basis, I have a really hard time supporting any of this kind of thing. And I will stand on that. So any further discussion? Go ahead.
I don't mind it because, or the motion, because the fact is it's going to be a negotiation. And it is it's not a given, and the amounts won't be a given thing.
Any further discussion before I call the question? Okay, I will call the question then. That is carried. We will move on to 8.41, Transportation and Agricultural Report.
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting the January 2025 Transportation and Agricultural Department Report, which begins on page 128 of the agenda. The first few pages are some highlights for some salient points in the tables and charts following those pages. And just as a note, different in this report, we did include a capital project summary for 2024. After this report, the 2024 capital projects will be removed from the report, and then obviously the 2025 projects will be reported moving forward. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accepts the January 2025 Transportation and Agriculture Department report as information.
Thank you for the motion. Any other discussion? I will call the question then. That is carried. We'll move on to 8.42, Elevator Road Maintenance Agreement.
I'll move that council directs administration to work with the village of Rocky Ford to formalize a road maintenance agreement for Elevator Road in alignment with intermunicipal collaboration framework agreement. That's the motion. Comment. County is, to my knowledge, has looked after this road, graded it, and at times even put dust control down since forever. This road is primarily used by producers to move, particularly to move equipment from one side of Rocky Ford to the other. The next closest road to go around is, got to go through Rosebud and Redland, or you got to go up to the 564. Otherwise, the machinery is going through Rocky Ford. And not much different than Cheadle, where the machinery has to move through the hamlet right now. But council is, I believe, this year going to build that road that goes through to the south of Cheadle to facilitate. It's a safety concern, it's an issue. This road used to service the grain elevators that used to be there and the truck traffic that was associated with it. But there's still a lot of traffic goes on that road. And yeah, if there's any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. Otherwise, that's my motion.
Thank you. We do have administration that was going to do a report on it, and that motion will stay on the floor. Go ahead.
Morning, Council. Cody Zimmerman with administration. Just do the report on the elevator road maintenance agreement. So the Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework Agreement, or ICF, between Wheatland County and the Village of Rockyford, dated March 11th, 2020, outlines that Wheatland County is to maintain both Serviceberry Trail and elevator road within the village boundaries. A road maintenance agreement for Serviceberry Trail, or Range Road 233 as it's known, was executed by both municipalities on July 13th, 2011, and remains in effect until July 13th, 2031. However, no such agreement was ever executed for the maintenance of Elevator Road, which lies between Range Road 233 and Township 263A, and for which the county has been providing regular maintenance for several years. The ICF agreement has been provided with the report for reference, and the map also included identifies Elevator Road within the village boundaries. See that there. When it was identified that no agreement was in place for the maintenance of the roadway, Wheatland County Administration reached out to the administration from the Village of Rockyford regarding the issue and set preliminary discussions regarding the need for a formalized agreement for the maintenance of the road. The road maintenance agreement will outline the scope and frequency of maintenance works, any associated costs for the performance of maintenance, provide authorization for the county to perform the works within the village boundaries, outline liability and indemnity clauses, and will define the term for the agreement. A draft road maintenance agreement has been provided with the report for council's review. The agreement details the county's performance of routine road maintenance works such as roadside mowing, grading, and snow plowing to occur in alignment with Wheatland County's procedures and processes, and in alignment with the frequencies for which the county performs maintenance on its own roadways. Graveling of the roadway would only occur at the request of the village, for which they would be billed back the cost of the gravel in accordance with the Master Schedule of Fees bylaw. The agreement would commence immediately upon execution by both municipalities and is proposed to expire March 31st, 2027, shortly after the expiration of the current ICF agreement and following the conclusion of the winter plowing season. Following direction from council, administration will incorporate any council feedback regarding the draft agreement and then pass the road maintenance agreement to the Village of Rockyford for review and consideration. Administration will then either bring a partially executed agreement back for council, agreement back to council for final approval, or will bring a revised draft agreement with any proposed edits from the village for council's consideration. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion?
So just to clarify, just for clarification, this item is not whether or not we're going to provide the maintenance, it's that we just have an agreement in place. Yeah.
Through the chair, that is correct. This is council's direction to move forward with presenting this agreement to the village for consideration performance of the services.
Any other questions? I have one. Do we have any other villages that we have this kind of agreements with, or the town, or like this is a road kind of right in their boundaries, which is different? I can see ones that were right on the edge of a boundary, but this is kind of right within their boundaries.
Through the chair, this is the only agreement specifically like this, other than the one noted for Serviceberry Trail within Rockyford's boundary as well. None of the other villages, we don't have a road that travels through them such as this. Yeah, we do have some other road maintenance agreements in place for a few other things in a few other areas, but yeah, none specifically with another village.
Thanks.
This is probably unique in that other hamlets likely have provincial roads that go through that aren't under our jurisdiction. So this is probably just a unique situation where they reside on a non-secondary or, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. Sorry.
Councillor Reichert, then Councillor Kester.
So, like, what happens if we're grading the road and we destroy the road in the process of grading it? We tear it all up. Like, where does the indemnity go for? Are we responsible for the shape of that road, even though it's not our road?
Through the chair, so we'd only be liable, I guess, for any damage caused during our actions, but this is general maintenance. We wouldn't foresee any major issues to arise from that. But it is written that the indemnity clauses are in there to cover us off in the event that something were to happen. And then just, I guess, another point of clarification with regards to other agreements. So the one for Serviceberry Trail is also quite a bit different because that is a paved roadway. So there's a lot more that goes into that maintenance and a lot more cost. With this, we have to travel this road with our equipment to get to our own road. So that's kind of the thing with this one, is that the grader has to drive down there to get to our roads. Our gravel trucks have to drive down there to get to our roads. So it's whether we're traveling it either way, whether the blade's up or the blade's down. So it makes sense to hit it on the way through. I framed this agreement to be in alignment with what we have existing, more so with Drumheller for Wayne Hill and Raymond Hill. So it's very much written in that framework where we're providing general road maintenance that we'd normally be doing anyway on our way through. And then obviously billing the cost of any gravel we would put on the road back to the municipality, because that's going to be an improvement and an asset we're putting on their asset. So.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Rockyford's sitting on, say, the crossroads of county roads. There's no way to get to the other side of the Rockyford unless going on those roads. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Those are controlled by Rockyford. They can control what kind of traffic they want on it too. So we have to have agreements with them to look after, because we major users of those roads.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm all for formal agreements to get all the dots and everything covered, and liability covered and everything, so we know exactly where we stand, what, when, why, and how. And if council supports that, that's great. Any further discussion? Call the question. That's carried. Is there anything further on the agenda other than the closed session? Do we have time to do closed session before lunch, or do we want to take an early lunch?
One short, but lunch is just on the way back now.
Okay.
A little bit late, so we can start taking camera session if council would like, or
Council's wishes. Do we want to try to go into closed session and deal with that issue beforehand? Yeah. For sure, we can take a 2-minute break. Will we be in this room?
yeah, we can stay in this room.
Riva Link, does that work for you as well?
She's already in the closed session.
Okay, perfect. That's what we'll do then. We will go into, I move us into closed session. All in favor? It's carried. Sorry. Yeah. Amber, can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. We're resuming council meeting, and we have motions arising from in camera.
I'll move that council accepts the purchase of offer for the remaining county-owned lands within the Lakes of Muirfield development and authorizes the Reeve and Chief Administration Officer to sign the purchase and sales agreement with Chapel Rock Development.
Thank you. Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Is everybody on eScribe? Amber?
Yes. Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Okay, I will call the question then. Some music would be nice. Some music would be nice. Everybody has to take a turn, sing. That's carried. Motion, other motion? Councilor Rigger.
That council approves the transfer of the proceeds of the sale to go to the Lakes of Muirfield Reserve.
Second motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I will call the question. That is carried. Anything further from the agenda? No?
Oh, they did go back in session.
Hello? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe.